Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. My name is Nick Park. We're covering a series of teachings called The Great Prayers of the Old Testament, and we're looking how men and women of God were used by God to increase in their prayer life and to grow closer to God in their intimacy with Him. And we want to similarly increase our prayer lives and grow closer to God. In Psalm 139, we find the prayer of someone who realizes that God knows him better than he knows himself. You see, sometimes we're good at keeping our innermost secrets and our feelings hidden. Sometimes we put on a front. Now, sometimes we do it because we don't want to upset people, or we've got a job to do, so we knuckle down and do it and keep the stiff upper lip, as the British would say. But, with God, you cannot do that. You can't go to God in prayer and pretend to be better than you are, or more devoted than you are, or more sorry than you are. You have to be real. You have to be transparent with God in prayer. Just going through saying the right words is pointless if your heart does not match up to the words, because man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart. And so in Psalm 139, we find that the writer, the psalmist, says this, and it's a prayer because it's not talking about God, it's addressed to God. In verse 4, he says, "Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain." And he goes on to say that wherever he goes, that God will be there. There isn't a place he can run to where he can run away from God. And then he realizes that God knows him better than he knows himself, even his physical body and the way he's put together. We all have aches and pains and things to do with our bodies that maybe other people don't know, but God knows. And he says, "God, you know my body better than I do. You knit me together in the womb. Before I even understood I had a body, God, you totally understood my body." And then he says that God's thoughts are so much greater than our thoughts. And he actually says this, that God's thoughts are greater in number than the grains of sand. If you were to go down to a beach, how many grains of sand is in a beach? How many grains of sand is in the Sahara Desert? How many grains of sand are there in the world? Well, God's thoughts about us and what God knows about us are greater than all those grains of sand. And then, rather than being overwhelmed by these things, the psalmist in his prayer, instead he finds a passion for God's honor. And that even begins to turn into an anger at the people who dishonor God. And then he prays this wonderful prayer, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." We need to be totally transparent with God, because whatever you try to hide, it makes no difference. God sees you. God knows you. He knows who you are. He knows what's in your heart. He knows what's real. He knows what's false. He knows what you're ashamed of. He knows what you're proud of. And God is willing, as he knows you and he made you, to use you in a mighty way. And so we can simply echo that prayer of the psalmist that says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart, and test me, and know my anxious thoughts, and see if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." And all I can say to that is amen. God bless you. Join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.